Hey guys, and welcome back to Enjoyable Fan Games. My name is DanRock, and today we're taking a look at Toadette Strikes, or Toad Strikes Back 2, which is a fan game that I've been requested to look at way too many times recently. So I figured I might as well dive in, put the gloves on, and dissect. Now I hear you ponder, what is the plot to Toadette Strikes, or Toad Strikes Back 2? Well, it's actually got quite an intricate and somewhat unprecedented plot for a Mario game. I guess this game takes place several generations after Mario and Luigi have fought Bowser and I guess either retired or died, as the opening prelogue tells you. Or at least it tells you about the legend of Super Mario, which leads me to believe that this is a very more recent game. It takes place in modern times, whereas perhaps the old Mario games took place years ago. Or maybe I'm just thinking too far into it. Anyways, Toadette decides that it's her responsibility to stop evil this time, so she goes on a journey with all sorts of charisma, courage, and a life bar. Yeah, I guess that's my transition into gameplay. Now, if you're familiar with the formula of the standard Mario game, you know, crushing bricks, running around, stomping on enemies, then you'd quickly understand this game pretty easily. There's also a bit of Mario 2 mixed in, as you can lift enemies and objects over your head and throw them. And you can tell that a lot of inspiration has been taken from games that actually include Toad in it, so that's kind of cool that they paid a lot of attention to detail. There are a couple standout elements in this game that make it quite unique compared to other Mario games. For example, Toadette doesn't use mushrooms to grow in size and to expand her health. Well, sort of, she does to expand her health, but she has a life bar, which is quite useful, as you can take more than just 2 hits before you die. As far as power-ups, which do exist in this game, Toadette can acquire a hammer, which can really mess up some enemies, as well as a slightly tweaked fire flower, which has been changed for the better, because now you can actually aim your shots by pressing up or down on your controls. Now that's kinda cool. Trust me on this one, there's nothing more fun than chaining together a bunch of enemy kills at once by utilizing the new power-ups maneuvers. You can switch between weapons by hitting the spacebar, which is incredibly useful for taking out different types of foes with different types of weapons. Overall, I found the weapon and item play in this game to be oddly satisfying, especially considering the fact that we never really get to see this in a Mario game. However, let's move on to the aesthetics next, which look absolutely beautiful. A lot of these sprites are custom, and if they're not, then Lord knows if I know where they got them from. A common complaint with fan games is that you can't tell the difference between enemies and background, so you tend to run into them by accident. However, this game has them popped, so they're very hard to miss. The music is also quite nice, which is a nice improvement over most Mario fan games that just have generic MIDI remixes. This one has very nicely done remixes, though unfortunately, once again, they're in MIDI. But I guess that adds to the game's small file size. They are a pleasure to listen to throughout your experience though, so I don't fault them for it at all. Unfortunately, there are a couple things I do have to fault them for. They're not huge problems, and they can be very easily corrected, I would assume. Firstly, you may have noticed that whenever I jump or move, the entire screen moves, not just Toadette. And that is very irritating. As a matter of fact, after the first 30 minutes of playing this game, I actually had to stop to let my eyes take a break. On top of that, I tried showing some footage of this to one of my friends who I, at the time, didn't know had motion sickness, and they told me they couldn't even get past the first 5 minutes because they were feeling queasy. That doesn't seem like it would be a huge problem to fix, though, thankfully. There is one more issue I have with this game when it comes to level design, though. Whenever you die in this game, you respawn without items, and the level design is very obviously supposed to be catered to needing items. It's not the biggest issue in the world, but I feel like you take a lot of cheap hits when you shouldn't. It's very easy to fix. You can just go right into the software you were using and remove some of the enemies, and it would not be a big deal, but you really shouldn't cater your level design around the expectation that the player is going to have a hammer or a fireball on them at all times, because in reality, they're not. They're going to die, and you should make the level design a little bit more forgiving because of it. Of course, partner that with the fact that the entire screen shifts whenever you jump, and it makes the game a little irritating to play at points. However, it didn't detract from the fun I had playing it, which is why I still recommend that you guys try it out. With finely tuned power-ups, Castlevania 2-esque level design, and an overall improvement in terms of visuals over most fan games, the pros do outweigh the cons. If a couple of these problems I have are fixed, then this would probably be one of my favorite Mario fan games ever made, and they seem like relatively easy fixes. It still didn't detract from my overall experience with the game, and I still enjoyed myself a lot, which is why I highly recommend that you try it out. There'll be a link in the description as always. And as always for me, this has been DanRock, and I hope that you have enjoyed this episode of Enjoyable Fan Games. If you have any more ideas for fan games that you want me to cover in the future or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments. But for me, for now, I hope that you guys enjoyed. Try this game out, and I'll see you guys next time.